Hi, my name is Claire and this is my channel Claire's Footsteps, and today we're going to be talking all about the beautiful country of Algeria. Now, I was really lucky to spend 10 days in Algeria in September, and I packed a lot in and I've come away with some really useful tips and guidance for visiting the country. There's not a huge amount out there about travelling to Algeria, so I hope what I've got to say will be useful if you're planning a trip there. The first part of this Algeria guide is about getting a visa. The Algerian visa has notoriously been very difficult to obtain. Historically, you had to get a letter of invitation and then fill out quite a detailed application form with a load of supporting documents and then send it off to the embassy. I actually did all of this. I ended up with a 100-page long document to send off to the embassy, and I did it and my visa was accepted, so that's all good. So you can still go this way, but actually even since I was in Algeria, which was only 2 months ago, it has got a lot easier. So nowadays, if you're spending a bit of your trip in the desert region of Algeria, you can apply for a visa on arrival. You still have to get kind of a letter of invitation, you still have to go through a company, but it takes out all of the hard work. You don't have to have this send your passport off, you don't have to deal with all of the wait times, and you don't have to do as much paperwork. So it definitely is the much easier option. The tour company that I'm going to recommend a few times in this video is Fancy Yellow, and they're based in Algiers, and they can help you with the visa on arrival. Alternatively, if you're not going to the desert and you need to get the traditional in-passport visa, they can also help you with the letter of invitation for that as well. I'll put all of their details in the description to this video. Let's talk about how to get to Algeria now. So most tourists fly to Algiers. There's a large airport there and they have flights to a lot of European and African destinations. There are direct routes from London, Paris, Frankfurt, Spain, a few places in Spain, Madrid I believe, and we actually flew from Algiers to Dakar in Senegal. And you can also get flights to Tunisia. Not sure if you can get a flight to Egypt. But yeah, places in the region, it's quite easy to fly in and out of Algiers airport. However, to arrive in Algeria, I actually took the boat. So I took a boat from Marseille in the south of France to Algiers. It was a 24-hour boat ride and I had a really good time. So that's definitely something to consider if you don't want to fly. Next up, let's talk about getting around Algeria. So we were actually part of a tour, so I can't really talk about this too much. But there is a train network along the north coast of Algeria, and if I was travelling independently, I definitely would have tried that out. So you can use the train to get from Algiers to Oran, say, which is the second largest city, or to other destinations along the coastline. There are buses that connect Algiers and other cities all together, but I'm not sure how to use them as I didn't use them myself. Most locals do actually fly between cities, especially if they're going down to the places in the south. So if you're going into the Sahara Desert, you are quite likely to take a domestic flight. This is because Algeria is huge, it's the largest country in Africa, and a lot of places would just take far too long to drive to. So what about the best places to visit in Algeria? I'll talk first about the places that I went to, and then I'll talk about some other places that I've been recommended. And if you're watching this and you're from Algeria and there's somewhere that you think tourists should go to that I don't mention in this section, please do leave a comment and say why people should visit it. It would be great to open the comments forum up so people can use the comments for tips and guidance to visit Algeria as well. Of course, I'm going to start with Algiers, the capital. Algiers is a really lovely Mediterranean city. I think it's so underrated. It has really beautiful architecture. It has a real reflection of different styles of architecture. It's got loads and loads of history. It's got loads of places to eat good food, and it just has a really nice atmosphere. I really enjoyed my time there. Around an hour from Algiers, you'll find Tipaza, which are the most epic Roman ruins that are right by the sea. They're really easy to visit on a day trip from Algiers. Also Churchill, which is another town with Roman ruins, and it's got a big ruin museum, is near to Tipasa, so you can visit both on the same day trip. But the best Roman ruins that I saw were in Gemella. So these are about an hour and a half from Constantine. They're around 3.5 hours from Algiers, and they were just epic. Like, they weren't just the best Roman ruins I saw in Algeria, I think they're the best ruins of any civilization I've ever seen. Really definitely recommend seeing them. Then there's Constantine, which is the historic city of bridges. This city has so much history. It was built around the gorge, and it was occupied by the Phoenicians, the Romans, the Ottomans, and then the French. And it has different kind of relics from all of these architectural styles, and it has bridges from all of these eras as well. And then obviously, you know, there's the constant Algerian local thread running through, so you'll see, you know, a real fusion of local Algerian styles of architecture and also lots of fusion from the other cultures that have passed through. It's a really fascinating place. The gorge is absolutely beautiful as well. And then my favourite place that we went to in Algeria was Tagat. So this is in the, not even in the south, it's in the central west of the country, and it's in the Sahara, but it's not like as in like right in the Sahara as some other places in Algeria, but it is home to one of the largest sand dunes in the world. It's home to some really beautiful Saharan mud architecture houses, and they're really cool to see. And it's also home to some ancient rock paintings, which are fascinating. So there's loads to see there, and it's also just like beautiful desert scenery. I really enjoyed it there. We only had 24 hours there, which was a shame because I could have definitely spent longer. So now I'll just quickly talk about other places that have been recommended to me. Obviously I haven't been to these, so do your own research, but I'll just give you the names so you can make a note of them and have a look, see what you think of them. So the first one is Oran, which is Algeria's second largest city, and it's meant to have very Parisian style architecture. Then there is Vijaya, which is a very chilled out beach city. Then there's Janet, which is where some people on my tour actually did an extension to Janet, but I didn't, unfortunately. And that is again in the desert, and it's got some really cool like rock formations and stuff. They did a couple of nights wild camping there. Gardea, I think it's pronounced, is an ancient city with some really unique customs. And Tamanhasset is an oasis city in the desert. For a lot of desert places you will need a local guide, so do bear that in mind if you're planning on heading down to the desert, and definitely plan on heading down to the desert. It is the best part of Algeria. So yeah, if you are a local and there's somewhere I've missed, please do feel free to comment and let me know what you think the best place in Algeria is. So I'm just going to quickly go through all of the hotels that I stayed at in Algeria, just to give you an idea of the hotels that are on offer, and I'll include links to all of these hotels in the description. So if you do need a personal recommendation, then that should be helpful, hopefully. So the first hotel that I stayed at, which I stayed at on my own, was Hotel Sidi Yahia. So this is in the Sidi Yahia area of Algiers, which is not the centre, it's where all the embassies are. There's also a lot of like international restaurants and stuff there. The hotel was very nice, it was very modern, it was 4-star, it had a good breakfast buffet, and I enjoyed being there for a few days. My room was very nice as well. My room was very, very bright and very modern. The main place that we stayed in Algiers was Hotel ABC. I quite liked Hotel ABC. It was very friendly. It had an okay breakfast. The rooms were quite good. The beds were always very comfy. Beds were very big, which was good. And actually, the first time we stayed there, we ended up with a whole like mezzanine level. So we ended up with like 2 rooms in one, basically. So yeah, ABC was nice. We also stayed at El Ghanami Hotel, which is also in the centre of Algiers. I wasn't such a fan of El Ghanami Hotel. It was fine. The rooms were a little bit smaller, and the breakfast buffet was just a croissant, so it wasn't as good on the breakfast front, but the hotel was fine and we were only staying there for a night. In Tagat we stayed in Saoura Hotel, and this was a lovely relaxed hotel with a really nice swimming pool. Really enjoyed my stay here. And in Constantine we stayed stayed at the Hotel Ibis. This was pretty standard, you know what to expect when you have an Ibis, but it did have the best view of any Ibis that I've ever stayed in. It's also worth mentioning that it is not difficult to get alcohol in Algeria, but quite a lot of places aren't licensed to sell it. But the Hotel Sahora in Tagat and the Hotel, the Ibis in Constantine, both had hotel bars that sold alcohol. So let's talk about health and safety in Algeria. Algeria is largely very, very safe. When I was with my partner and the tour group, I felt 100% safe pretty much all of the time. Everyone was very friendly and helpful, and there just wasn't anything that made me feel unsafe at all. The only caveat that I will give is when I was there on my own, I did get a bit of catcalling and a bit of unwanted attention. However, I do want to stress that a lot of Algerians are exceptionally nice and friendly, and while I did get a bit more catcalling from some people, most people were way more friendly and welcoming than they are in a lot of countries. So while there was that little bit of extra attention, I also did feel like there was a lot of people who would be very, very helpful and just really nice, and you know, would help me out if I ever had any trouble. I never felt like any of the catcalling or any of that was gonna cause anything serious, but it did make me a bit uncomfortable at times. But then, like I say, on the other end of the scale, so many people are so nice and so friendly and so respectful and helpful. If you want to see just how friendly and welcoming Algerians are, just take a look at my comment sections on any of the videos that I've done. I've had so many lovely comments from locals who've just said welcome, you know, try to help me out with recommendations for things, which I've put all on my list for when I go back to Algeria, and that just really represents how most Algerians are. Most Algerians are super, super friendly and welcoming, so I really don't want to, the bit of catcalling that did happen, I don't want that to kind of tarnish that, because as a whole I felt extremely welcomed and at ease in Algeria. When you go into the south, you do need a police escort in some areas, and your tour guide will organise this for you. You don't have to do anything. This isn't because the areas are dangerous, but it's just because you just drive through some sensitive areas, so they prefer you to have an escort. I've actually heard that in Algiers the tap water is okay to drink. Personally, I didn't, but, and yeah, don't take that as gospel, like do have a research, but I did hear that actually after I'd left Algeria, and the food hygiene is generally good. I didn't know of anyone on my trip who'd gotten sick or anything like that, and no particular vaccinations are needed. So generally it's a very safe place to travel. If you're wondering what to wear in Algeria, I generally erred on the side of dressing more conservatively, so I would wear long dresses. I'd make sure I covered my shoulders and the tops of my arms, but there's no particular rules about what to wear. You can wear what you want, but I just think it's more appropriate to wear longer clothes when possible. You don't need a headscarf or anything like that unless you're going into a mosque. I do sometimes wear a headscarf if I just feel more comfortable wearing one, but you really don't need to walk around wearing. When I was on my own, I dressed slightly more conservatively than I did when I was with the rest of the group, and that was just because I was just trying to blend in a bit more. Let's talk about the best time to visit Algeria. So I think spring and autumn are good times. It's nice to have a bit of heat because it's a hot country, but from what I've read, the heat in the summertime can be a bit unrelenting. The end of September was a nice time to be there. It was about 25 to 30 degrees in Algiers and along the coastline. It was hotter down in the desert, but it was a dry heat, so it wasn't too bad. It can be a bit rainy on the Mediterranean coastline in the winter, and yeah, the summer is just warm, so spring and autumn I think would be good times. But you can pretty much do it any time. The only thing you might not want to do is go into the desert in the middle of summer, because that will be very hot indeed. And lastly, let's talk about the cost of travel in Algeria. So Algeria is not a particularly expensive place. You can find street food for less than $1, and food at a sit-down restaurant can be less than $5. Obviously, as I mentioned, I was on a tour, but I spent about, prior to the tour, I spent about, I think it was $70 a night on a 4-star hotel, and then the 3-star hotels were only about $35 to $40 per night. So it's not expensive. If you're on a budget, you'll be able to do it very cheaply, but just do bear in mind that part of your trip will need to be as part of a tour, and you might actually find it more budget friendly to do more as a tour because obviously they get good deals and things like that. It's also worth mentioning that the Algerian dinar is a closed currency. You can't get it outside of Algeria. And a lot of the time the banks don't give you a very good rate if you're withdrawing, and sometimes it's even really difficult to find an ATM that will accept foreign cards. So I do recommend bringing euros or dollars into the country to cover the total time of your stay and changing when you're there. Alright, I think that's pretty much everything. I visited Algeria with Lupine Travel, and they run a few trips to Algeria every year. I really recommend them, and I'll put their link in the description. But if you want to visit any other time of year and you want to kind of plan a semi-independent trip, you can get in contact with Fancy Yellow and they will help you with the tour guiding that you need for a little bit of it, and they'll also help you out with the visa. They're a really great company. Omar and Islam are the guys who run it, and they're really friendly. They speak perfect English and they'll help you out a lot with your time in Algeria. Definitely, like, it's nice to have a really good company recommendation to give, and I can wholeheartedly recommend those guys. If you are from Algeria and you have any more tips to add, please do. As I said, I'd love to make the comments more of an open forum so people who are planning a trip to Algeria can read them and get some great tips from locals. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much for welcoming me into your country. I really did have a great time in Algeria, and I will definitely be back to see more. I think that's pretty much the end of my Algeria series now. So thank you so much for watching this video and for any other Algeria videos. And next up, I have a video series from Senegal, and I will be publishing that very soon. So thank you so much for watching. Please do subscribe if you want to see more of my adventures around Africa and elsewhere in the world, and I will hopefully see you next time. Bye!